Everybody. My name is Pastor Kate Ryer-Welton, and I am the Lutheran campus pastor at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. And first of all, before I say anything else, I want to say thank you for participating in LCM Sunday. There's 9 congregations this year that are doing this, that are welcoming students into their pulpit and that are gathering together to learn more about what's happening on campus and also what you can do to support, to lift up, to encourage these young adults who are faithfully bearing witness to God's love and God's redeeming power in the world. So thank you so much for being in this adult forum. The really amazing news that we have to report is that we have 9 congregations this year that are welcoming students into their pulpits. The tricky thing about this is I can't be there, and I really like to be at these adult forums, in part, I say, so that I can tell the good news. It's a part of my job that I get to proclaim the good news that the church is not dying, that 50 or 60 students are walking across campus on Wednesday nights during the school year at 9 o'clock, sometimes for over a half hour in the freezing cold, simply to go to church and to be together in Christian community. And so the church is not dying. It will certainly look different in the future. But we have some amazing young adults that we get to work with, and I just wanted to thank you for supporting our ministry and for supporting our work. I'm here actually not to talk about all of that, but to talk about these 3 expressions that we've grown into over the years. Students were the ones that came up with them when we asked them, can you find kind of a catchy way to talk about what we do and who we are on campus and why we're important? And students continue to really live into these 3 expressions. We talk about being curious, being real, and being community. And I think they really speak to some of the challenges and the opportunities that we as a ministry of the ELCA have to live into while we're on campus. And so first of all, we talk about being curious. The campus is their tagline right now. It might change in in a day or a month or a couple years, but the University of Minnesota's tagline right now is driven to discover. And so if the church can't come alongside that posture of openness, that posture of discovery, and be curious, we're missing a really great opportunity. And so we encourage students to be curious about their vocations, what might God be calling them to do in this world, but also who is God calling them to be. As technology disrupts the way we've thought about job growth and as innovation continues to change jobs in the job market, I think equipping students with tools of discernment, with ways to be curious and continue to be curious about what God is up to in the world, what God is up to in their lives, actually equips them to discern their vocations over time in a different way than simply picking a career like I might have done 20 years ago and then kind of leaning into that and going from there. So we talk about being curious in that way. The other thing is that the University of Minnesota is maybe unique to other college campuses or maybe similar. I just know this one, where black and white ways of thinking about religion and spirituality are really prominent on campus. So there's a really loud kind of atheist, skeptical voice or a secular voice that questions the academic integrity of anybody who might talk about being a Christian. And then the other side, there's a theology that's really present on campus. Folks have a lot of staff members, and there's a lot of students that are participating also in a myriad of student groups that have a more fundamentalist interpretation of Scripture and I think a more narrow understanding of God. And it's very black and white. It's very insider-outsider, and it doesn't leave a lot of room for questions about one's faith, for questions about Bible, for a posture of curiosity. We're really a community that encourages students to learn how to ask good questions, to really engage with God, to wrestle with God down by the Jabbok like Jacob did. We understand ourselves as people who are curious. So That's the first thing. If I was there in person, there would be a lot more stories I would tell, but I'm going to let the students and the alumni tell those stories. The second one, the second tenet that I think is really important to students is being real. And authenticity, of course, has always been really important to young adults. I don't think that this is a generational thing. I think for boomers and Xers and millennials and now this Generation Z, a community which is full of integrity and authenticity is really important. Students often will tell me that this community is one of the only places, if not the only place on campus where they can really be real. I think pressures of performance in the classroom are really increasing. I think students feel a lot of pressure to get a job. They feel a lot of pressure to get internships, and all of these things become woven together. And the narrative of their school, whether it's the Carlson School of Business or the College of Science and Engineering, they each have their own narratives about if you don't do X by this time, then you won't be able to do Y, then you won't be able to do Z, and your life will certainly fall apart at that point. And so we try to ground them in another reality, which is Christ's first love for them before and beyond anything they do or don't do. Another thing that I think is becoming increasingly important is that as social media usage becomes a primary way of connecting with one another, and certainly has some really positive impacts on students' lives, on folks who are feeling isolated and lonely, it can help create community and draw them into unique community. I do think that one of the things about social media is that it can encourage you to present a kind of yourself, to perform an identity, if you will, around perfection. You can take 20 selfies and choose the best one. And so it appears as if everyone is living the perfect life, and you feel pressured to really put that image out. And when your life, as it doesn't, when your life doesn't measure up to that, it can create some really unique pressures that I think are only just emerging with this generation. And so we try to really create a space where you can be honest about those joys that you're experiencing in your life, to have a lot of fun, but also to talk about those broken places in our lives and those areas where we might be questioning or doubting or are feeling insecure. And so that certainly comes with some challenges, but I think is a real net positive for the church to be the place where people come to be real and then to be reminded of God's love before and beyond anything you do or don't do in that context. And so being real is really important to us. And the last thing, the third thing that we talk about is being community. And our current students, and often some alumni, will lift this up as the most important thing. The reason that they joined our ministry was for community. The University of Minnesota is a really big place. There's 55,000 folks on campus, and the freshman class sizes are getting larger every year. Each of the colleges kind of operates in its own little silo, brings speakers to campus, and that speaker, if they're speaking, they'll often have multiple speaking gigs because the different schools can't align. Class schedules are at different times. And so there's not kind of an overarching narrative that says that this is who we are as Gophers. And so there can be a fragmentation. So in addition to this large campus, it's also spread out around 3 different campuses. You have to take buses to get there or ride a bike if you're really committed in the winter time. And then the university, the schools themselves aren't communicating with one another. So it can be hard to kind of find your place in the midst of all of that. And so we provide a place for students to do that. So I hope that you get a chance to engage with our board members and our students who are certainly also experts in this ministry. And if you'd like me to come out and talk with you all about what I'm learning from Generation Z and the hope that I see from that generation about the future of our church, I'd be happy to do that at another time. But this is simply your primer, an invitation to know just a little bit more about what we're up to on campus. So please enjoy the conversation with the students, and I look forward to hearing from you. And thank you again for all of your support.